Well, Hilary, thanks so much for taking time to join me today. I appreciate it.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So many of the women who listen to our show are either, considering a shift or a change in their life, and starting a business is one of those possibilities. If you're having the opportunity to speak to them today, how do you even know if that's something that you're ready for or not?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I wish I could tell you there was like this one shining way to answer that. And the truth is there's not. That's a very gross answer to the question, but there rarely is a good indicator that yes, it is time. But I would say there's a couple of things that point us typically in the right direction. One is, at least from my past, I was frustrated with the circumstances I was in. And it was very much leading me in the direction of wanting to own my own business because I had worked in corporate and was just finding myself at, kind of a breaking point. Like, this is not where I want to be anymore. And this is no longer aligned with the life that I want to have. I think too, in order to really be ready for it, you need to have done a significant amount of research. And so it's not the kind of endeavor I would say, let's embark upon this blindly. No, let's spend a year, even if it takes that long. If it takes 2 years, like, do your research before you go full in. And I think 3 is you need a good runway. And by that, I mean financially. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you have no money in the bank and you're trying to start an endeavor, because you do make very poor decisions when you're not well funded. So maybe you have a year's worth of runway. That's cool, because at that point you can make some good decisions. You can get out there and find your way, but don't go into it blind. Don't go into it without at least enough money to get your runway and get your business off the ground and make good decisions. And, do it because it's driven from inside of you, that you're feeling really compelled to pursue that path.
So I heard from you. Let's see. One of your reasons was you were kind of disenchanted from what you were
Yeah.
doing, and you were working for Miller Coors at the time. Is
I
that right?
was,
Okay.
yeah. I had a nearly 10-year career working in the beer business. And, from the outside in, people were like, God, you have a great job. And I did. But I wasn't enchanted with it. I reached a point where I was like, gosh, like, this isn't my life anymore. Like, I'm very much living someone else's definition of success, someone else's definition of what a good life looks like. And, I wanted something different. I wanted a life. And I had been moving every 1 to 2 years and relocating for my job. And I'm like, when
Wow.
is it going to be me? Like, when am I going to have my feet on the ground and actually have a life that is not just this work?
Yeah. Okay. So disenchanted. I definitely have felt that in my own life in different ways. They always say that if you probably want to be a leader as well if you're disenchanted with whatever context you're
Yeah,
in. The other was a lot of research,
of
um,
course.
not just on probably how to start a business, but also on the particular area of business that you're wanting to get involved in.
100%. And for me, that was 2 years. And in part because I had relocated for my job and I'd moved to Chicago, and I had a 2-year window where if I had moved, I'd have to pay back relocation expenses. So I thought,
Mm.
good window of time to
Yeah.
start doing
Yeah.
some research and get prepared. And also being from the South, I was like, man, the Chicago winter weather, not for me, so
Yeah.
the motivation was high to figure it out. But yeah, I used that time wisely. So I would come home from my day job and then sit at home at night and research and really try to uncover ideas at first. But then when I landed on the first idea for my first business, it was like, how do I go deep down this path and research this enough to feel really comfortable launching a business and knowing what the heck I'm doing, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you said a year of runway of income. That's a lot. Who does that? A year?
I mean, you want
Did
to
you
be
do that?
funded. Yeah. Oh yeah. I had plenty of money to be able to do it. And of course I
Yeah.
burned through all of it and then lost a bunch of money. But that's
Yeah.
that's what entrepreneurs do. But
Yeah.
you get more comfortable with that over time. But I would say, if it's just a side hustle and you're able to start it while you're running your current business, that's great, because it gives you a way to start making money and pulling in income during a time when you're pretty well protected. But for other people, you're going to have to leave your job entirely to really
Mhm.
pursue what you want. And I think in that case, you really do want to have more money in the bank, because the mistake I see most business owners make, if they're not well funded, they make decisions from a place of scarcity, which
Mhm.
means they're cutting everything off. They're saying, I can't afford to spend money on marketing. And I'm like, well, then your business is going to fail. or
Mhm.
I can't afford to get out and go make these sales calls because I'm spending all my time inside of my business. And I'm like, well, your business is probably not going to make it either.
Mm.
So you want to be able to make good decisions. And when we have enough cushion in the bank, we make better decisions.
Mhm. It seems like the side hustle path is so common today because you don't have to build up that much runway. Would you say?
Without a doubt. Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a lot of businesses that, they might generate an extra $10,000 or $20,000 for you for a year. And that
Mhm.
could be awesome. And you may never need to go the route of launching that business full time. And
Mhm.
I don't discount that for 1 minute. I mean, with Hatch Tribe, we have plenty of entrepreneurs that are part of our community, and they're side hustlers, but they are just as much an entrepreneur as you and I are. And I encourage them to step in and be part of that. And, sometimes you're like, gosh, this is transforming into a full-blown business, and I don't want to go do this other job anymore. And then you find your way to exit the one and go fully into the other.
Mhm. Yeah. What would you say are some of the, we know all the upsides of the side hustle. I mean, those are,
Mhm.
talked about all over the place. What are some of the downsides of a side hustle?
The biggest issue I see is typically it gets deprioritized. So, of course, it's going to come last after some other things. You have a job, let's say, that's paying you full time, and then you have this other thing you're trying to work on the side. Well, it is, quote unquote, on the side.
Yeah.
So time is limited, and oftentimes you don't have enough time to really invest in it to see it grow. And then I think when I hear entrepreneurs say, I want to make this my full time, that transition can be really hard because oftentimes it comes with the statement of, I want to be able to replace my income 100% before I transition out. And what I've found is that it's not that linear. It's that we
Mhm.
typically have to make the leap out because we haven't freed up enough time.
Mhm.
So we need the time in order to grow the business. So it's that whole time space conundrum in being able to grow a business.
Mhm. One of the things that I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk, who you are
Of
probably aware
course.
of course, he talks about you want to stay at your same lifestyle when you make that jump. So it's like, yeah, I still want to be having the 4-bedroom house as opposed to moving down to the 2-bedroom apartment. And
Yeah.
sometimes you got to take that step back in terms of lifestyle, whether it's the
Oh,
car
yeah.
you drive or what you're going out and doing, or the clothes you're wearing, or the vacations that you're going on, in order to make that jump.
Without a doubt. And I think those sacrifices, they're not intended to be permanent. But sometimes those short-term sacrifices are critical, and I often point entrepreneurs to like small things. It's like, do you need to have cable? Could you just let cable go? Or could you go get your nails done once a month instead of twice a month? And
Mhm.
sometimes it's just little things, but when you peel those back, if you can get an extra $500, but that's $500 to put towards growing your business, go do it,
Right.
and that's going to help you deliver in the long run in a way that's so much more meaningful than having cable right
Right, right. And
now.
you shouldn't be watching cable anyway. You should be working on your business.
That's exactly right. All in good balance though, David.
Yes, of course, of course. How would you say that women are uniquely positioned to become entrepreneurs?
That's an interesting question, and I don't know if it's necessarily our gender that positions us well to do it. I would argue that it's more an internal trait that I see, whether you're male, female, non-gender identifying. It's just, do you have that inner drive and that inner grit, and especially the self-motivation? Because when we get onto the other side where we're running our own business, what we no longer have is someone telling us what to do. And if
Mhm.
you've gone through your whole life having a manager who's told you what to do and you've played within those guardrails, but you've not been real self-directed and self-motivated, the struggle can be very real when you become a business owner. And I think what I like to see is, does an entrepreneur have that inner drive? Do they have the grit and the determination to work through things? Because there's just a lot, when you're running your own business, it just takes persistence, and nobody else is going to be sitting next to you going like, hey, you got to go get after it. It's all you.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of our listeners happen to be women who are making a transition because their children are either going to school at a young
Hmm.
age, or they're going to college, and now so
Right.
they have an empty nest. And one of the things that I'm trying to help women see is that there are so many entrepreneurial skills that have been developed if they, whether they've worked outside the home or not, because all of the management of these details and the coordination of all of these personalities. I have two teenagers. I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And my wife is a genius at managing their different personalities way better than I am. And that could be her personality, could be gender, could be whatever. All I know is she's amazing. And
Yeah.
so many women that I see have this unique ability to manage so many things at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And because culturally, or maybe it's just how their relationships have played out, they have stepped into a role where they're oftentimes managing not only their family, but oftentimes even a full-time job, you know?
Sure.
And so,
Lots of complexity.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so beautiful. And to go, no, that's entrepreneurial in a lot of,
A
in a lot of
100%.
ways, you know,
Yeah.
so powerful.
It's actually really fun. I mean, even on my team right now, I have her name's Nina, and she's our community manager, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and she has a almost 2-year-old, and then she has another baby on the way. And I love working with her. And I've had other team members before who have been moms, and I will tell you, they do bring a certain level of attention to detail, but also like complexity, and they're okay handling complexity. So, I mean, it's a generalization, but it is one that I think has been often true. And I think all of us bring something unique to the table, and no matter whether you're considering your own skill set or the people that you're putting on your team, it's just kind of looking at what are someone's natural gifts and talents that they show up with, and harnessing that. I mean, we do well when we can lean into our strengths versus trying to like shore up all these weaknesses all the time. So if someone's a detail person, let's let them rock out on the details, and if the other person's a big picture person, let's let them do that. Like, we don't need them to change what they're doing. They
Yeah.
might need to understand it, but they don't have to fundamentally change.
Yeah. Have you personally gone through the Strength Finders assessment?
Yeah, we actually just did a workshop on it last week inside the member circle. It's one of my favorite things.
Okay. Tell me what your 5 top strengths are.
I'm not going to remember all of them
Okay.
unless I
All
have it
right.
sitting
Well, a
here
few
on
of
my
them if you
table.
happen.
The first one, and I can never remember what the word is, but it basically translates to problem solver. It starts with an R, but I can never remember the word.
Okay. All right.
But not shockingly, that's something that I do, because as a coach, it's what I lean into. I want to help problem solve, and I want to help my clients figure it out. God, I wish I had that sitting with me. If I'd known you were going to ask me that, I totally would have had it. I'm wondering if it's sitting next to my desk. But I love Strength Finders. It's one of my favorite things. And we're actually doing a workshop with our team where we're taking all of our team's top strengths and then laying them all together so we can see how we're showing up as like a brand, which is kind of
Okay.
a
That's
fun
great.
little thing to layer over.
That's great.
So I wish I
Well,
could remember the other
as you're
ones.
looking for yours, I'll tell you mine.
Yeah,
Mine
what you got?
are competitor, or competition, I guess I would say. Command, which is competition. I always grew up thinking kind of it more of my spirituality tradition. Competition was seen as a negative thing, and so when
Right.
I saw it in the context of Strength Fighter, I go, oh no, yeah. I mean, I am competitive with other people, but I'm competitive with myself really more than anything to kind of keep getting
Yeah.
better. Command, if there's any lack of leadership, I'm going to step in. Um, let's see, activator, if something needs to be done, I'm on it. Input, I love getting input from others on how to make things better. And then the 5th one was futuristic, seeing things in the
Okay.
future.
I like it. Okay, I
Yeah.
found mine.
Okay, good.
Okay, so number 1 is restorative, and that's the one that means like
Oh,
problem solver. Restorative. The word doesn't make sense to me. That's why I can never remember it. The second one is significance, which I think is like you want your work to be meaningful. And fortunately, with Hatch Tribe, I've now found that. I didn't have that though in prior iterations of life and in career. So to me now, like living that, I'm like, of course now it's the top one.
yeah.
Um, Learner is one of mine, which makes sense. I mean, I'm like a book geek. I'm constantly in, learning mode. Discipline, which to me seems funny, but I am pretty disciplined about my schedule and routines and like keeping myself motivated and whatever. And the last one is activator. So I have that one in common with you.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so
I will
fun.
say, what's funny about this too is I took this probably 8 or 9 years ago when I was in the corporate world. And my top 5 strengths were totally different. And it's interesting to me because, of course, as my life has changed, like my role is changed entirely. Like I was doing a very different job than I'm doing right now. And so I thought originally, well, surely they will stay the same. Like futuristic and strategic had been in my top 5 before.
Okay.
And they're still around. Like futuristic is number 6 for me and strategic is number 11, but they've just changed and these other ones have risen up, which I think is so fascinating.
That's cool. That's cool. When you were first starting your business, what do you wish you would have done differently? Your first business, I think, were you in event management or event planning?
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, we were producing very large scale festivals and events. So if you picture like 1,000 to 4,000 people, like those size of events and things for the public. And um, what I wish that I had known is that I could have gone smaller. And I don't necessarily mean like the number of people in attendance at the events, but there were things that we were just trying to do at like a 100% level, A plus 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 plus. And it didn't have to be that complex. And we
Give
were
me, give
doing
me an
it
example.
everywhere. So first festival we did was called Charleston Beer Garden. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And so this was a beer festival that very much was kind of bringing together the skill set I had working in the beer business and then craft beer, which of course was exploding at the time. This was about like 8 years ago. And so we had just like gone gangbusters. We're like, we're going to get a local plant shop. What do you call those places? I want to say greenery. Like
Oh,
a
a
place,
nursery?
nursery. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we went to all these nurseries and we were like, we need plants. Like we have to have plants so we can make these beer gardens really look like beer gardens. And we wanted it to look amazing. And so we filled up a U-Haul full of like palm trees and all these other plants so that we could make it just so sexy. And I will tell you, when we got out there, we were like, well, that was a lot of work. And we had to load them back up and take them back. And it was like, that weekend, it was like 100 degrees, no joke. And so it was miserable. And it really didn't change the experience that people had. Like it was kind of a nice to have, but not a necessary. Yeah. So I often encourage early entrepreneurs to just say, is there a smaller version or a simpler version that you can bring to market? Because even if we're not talking festivals, let's say you're talking like, I want to sell a course. Well, can we just take it down to the most simplified piece? Because oftentimes we're just making it more complex, or we think we need to deliver more for our audience when we really don't. It's oftentimes just a very simple solution, but we just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and adding. And I'm like, no, just pull it back. Like come at it from 75% and it's probably going to be okay. And I wish that I'd known that.
Why do you think that is? Is it out of insecurity? Is it a desire to over deliver? Is it because you really like plants? Is it, like what? Not necessarily why you did that, but why do we do that as entrepreneurs trying to kind of max out?
You know what I think it is? It's until I just call it imposter syndrome, and I think your listeners probably are familiar with this, but if not, I'll just explain it in my 2 cents. When you're stepping into the role of an entrepreneur, you haven't fully put on that suit yet. You haven't totally embraced it. You haven't embodied it. You haven't owned that title. So you're trying to prove it. You're trying to prove that you're a legitimate business owner, that people should buy from you, that they can trust you, that they can spend money with you. And I think what we do is we overcorrect and we just try to provide so much value so that people will see us as being valuable and want to buy from us. Mm-hmm. And we just go over the top and it's so unnecessary, but you don't know another way yet, and you haven't learned to stand confidently and like, yes, I own this business and I'm really freaking good at it, mm-hmm. Because we haven't done it yet. We're not really standing firmly in our shoes.
A lot of that seems to play out in terms of pricing as well, because it's not only over delivering the amount that you're delivering, but like, it's like,
underpricing at the same time.
Yeah. Way underpricing, mm-hmm. way underpricing.
Without a doubt. How
do you coach the entrepreneurs that you're working with on the value that they're bringing to the table versus the price that they're putting on that?
Yeah, this is funny. This question's coming up a lot lately. And I think, it often starts with how do I price? And my philosophy on this is you do want to do research for sure. We want to have a sense for whatever it is that we're selling. What price is it being sold at in your own city for similar businesses, or cities outside of yours? What is it being sold for? And getting a sense for what's included. So not only the actual price, but actual like what's included in that price.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from there, it's also a little bit of gut and intuition, because we need to lean on our own understanding of who we are, the experience that we have, what we bring to the table, and what we believe our time is worth. And I think, if you're selling services, commonly there's the whole, like, what do you want to make in a year divided by the number of hours that you're going to work in the entire year. And then that's a base rate for what you might want to use. And I think it's a useful place to start. And it's a figure that you can use, but it's not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a little bit of an art. There's not a hard science to how we price. It is a bit of an art, but I think, to me, the key is let's get it out there and get the market to react to it. And by that, I mean, let's really go sell what we're doing and stay firm in our price. And let's see if we get responses that are yes, because if we do, our price is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if we get I don't know, and we're getting that from 100% of people we sell to, and they're saying your pricing is way too high, we may have actually priced too high.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, if we're getting yeses really, really fast, we actually have probably priced too low.
Right. Yeah. For the last 11 years, I've done communications and marketing for nonprofits, for-profits, and across the board. And people will oftentimes ask me, well, what's your price for X? And I go, well, it depends, and it's the person who is just price shopping, of course. And, and I always tell them, I go, I never bargain. Like, you're never going to talk me down. Like, the price is the price. And
that's good advice.
And if if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, totally okay. Like, totally okay. Now, it's probably because I've been in a position where I haven't been desperate to need, like that on the moment, where if I did need it, it was like, yeah, I'll take $50, or whatever it is.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway, it is that confidence, though. It's that confidence in the value that you're bringing, and the confidence also in your bank account and what you are in need of. Yeah.
It is.
So when you were starting your first business, what did you knock out of the park? Like, what did you just really crush on, where you go, I really got this right, though?
Yeah, I am a organizational whiz, and I think that served me well. So in our first business, we were producing large scale festivals, and when you're producing an event for 4,000 people, you've got to be well organized, and that's a 9-month to 12-month runway to get an event of that size off the ground. So, I got really good at figuring out what we needed to do and when we needed to do it, and building a system for that, and having a full blown Excel spreadsheet and color coding and all the things. And we needed that. It was the organization that helped us make that happen. And that's not everyone's skill set, but I would say in that industry, it's necessary, and it serves me really well even to this day. But of course, the other side of that is that sometimes I can get too process focused and sort of lose sight of the other side, which is like, are we really talking to our customers and our clients and making sure we're focused on them, because that's ultimately who we're serving. And so, I've learned my lesson on that. I've snapped at a few people at a festival before, and been like, wow, that was really not cool. But I was stressed out, and, but you learn, you live and you learn.
Yeah. But what that goes back to, that you were crushing it in that area because that was your strength, and you were leaning into that strength. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it served me well, but I think, you grow as you spend more time running your business, and you learn the things where you're like, I got this, but also where I don't have this down. And then at that point, it really becomes the question of, how are you going to go get the things that you don't have? So can you hire for it, or outsource for it, or, can you learn it, and how quickly can you learn it? Because you might not have a whole year to figure it out, so you have the right resources at your disposal and at hand, to make sure you can shore up potentially the weaknesses that you do have.
Mm-hmm. So you're coaching quite a few entrepreneurs. What are you seeing as the common hurdles? And I'd probably say earlier on in the process, because, with different times and different size businesses, there are different common hurdles. But as people are listening, going, okay, I'm thinking about stepping into this arena, what are the hurdles that I need to be aware of and be thinking about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I will say first of all, let me back up. I think typically an entrepreneur will come in and have a pretty good idea of what they need help with. And I'll I'll pick their brain enough. I
Mm-hmm.
ask a bunch of questions and they can surface up some stuff that they know they're challenged with.
They're feeling the pain.
They are. And it falls into two camps always. There are the things that are practical knowledge, like, for example, I feel like this business is out of control. I don't have my hands around it. That could be an indicator we need like a system or a process to control some things.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side almost always is mindset related, so it's something that's happening between our ears that's really affecting how we're showing up. It's affecting the work that we're doing. It's affecting the results that we're getting. And almost always sitting on the back of that is fear of something. So it's like the fear of hiring my first employee, the fear of asking for help, the fear of getting it wrong, the fear of putting it out there and being judged, the fear of insert fear here. And there's not a single one of us that's immune to that. So it doesn't matter whether you're just getting started, you're going to have your own set of fears, or if you're 10 years down the road and your business is growing and evolving, there is a new set of fears. But to me, I want to get to that. So when I'm working with clients, it's like, let's tease apart, because there are practical things we need to solve, but I want to know what lies beneath, because that's the stuff that's keeping you up at night. It's in your ears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So fear of all of those firsts, those are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of feeling out of control, that could be part of the systems issue. Yeah. And so how do you coach people then? Each fear is different, but how do you then, okay, you've identified the fear. What's the next step?
Yes. So for me, fear is replaced, because fear is doubt. Doubt's replaced through action. And so what I want to do is figure out what's the thing we need to do to build your confidence. It's always an action step. It's never more thinking. So let's get you out of rumination and get you into taking action steps in your business. And so to me, it's just practical. It's like, okay, we understand what's happening. Now, practically, what do we need to do to get you moving forward? Because I don't want you to continue thinking about this and like just mind screwing it to death. It's like, let's go. Let's figure this thing out. So it differs depending on what the fear is and what's showing up actually in the business. But I will tell you, it always leads to an action step into moving it forward. And as soon as we can get into action, we now have data, and data is important to make decisions with. So like, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And what I ask my clients always to do is like, let's just put on like our experimenter hat and go out and give it a whirl. Like, let's release expectation for results and let's just go do the thing, whatever that is. So if it's making sales calls, for example, like, oh, dreadful. Like, let's just go do it. Who cares what happens? And let's just see what happens. And usually it's good stuff. It's like, oh my God, like someone said yes, or someone introduced me to so-and-so, or it wasn't as bad as I thought. Oh, great. That's awesome. You want to keep doing that now? Yeah. So we break the cycle by getting them into action.
Yeah, that's so good. Connected to that fear is pain. And I recently watched a video that you put out a couple months back that says you were asking the question, what pain are you willing to endure to reach your goals? Mm-hmm. What pain are you willing to endure to reach your goals? Why would you say that's an important question to ask ourselves as we're starting, whether a business or a project or something new?
It's because things that are new are uncomfortable, and we're going to have to become best friends with discomfort in order to get there. And there are, like we were talking earlier, there are sometimes sacrifices we have to make. And sometimes they're short term. It could be like, I need to sacrifice cable, it's our joke, for, 3 months. But sometimes they're bigger. Like, I'm going to need to move into a smaller place so that I can decrease my expenses, because I really want to see this dream become a reality. And I need to cut the amount of money that's going out the door for my own lifestyle every single month, knowing full and well what we're trying to build is something that's so much bigger that allows us to live a bigger life down the road. And, some people are not willing to make sacrifices. They want to keep living that big life that they have, and they may not have the money in the bank to then fully fund their business. Or they say, I don't have the time. I want to spend, only 10 hours of my life working on this business. Well, that's cool, but your business will only grow to a certain size if that's the time contribution you have to give. Mm-hmm. So I think there will always be some amount of sacrifice. And in my mind, I can't imagine that there's not. It's just like in life, like, and no matter what we're doing, we're choosing every day how we spend our time, how we spend our money, how we spend our energy. And some things get full blown 100%, and some things get 50%. Mm-hmm. And that's okay though. But I think it's, we got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's just it. And as a business owner, you're uncomfortable a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Leadership expert John Maxwell, just heard him say the other day that everything worthwhile is uphill. And I hated that. I was like, this is the worst. This is the worst statement ever.
But
Everything,
it's true.
yeah, everything worthwhile is uphill. I thought, well, when's the downhill? When's the coasting? When is the, it gets easy? For me, the pain is less about the lifestyle change or the amount of hours. That could be the case for some people. For me,
Mm-hmm.
the pain is being required to do things that I don't want to do. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean paperwork, although that
Mm,
who wants to do that? It means having conversations that I don't want to have. It means
sure.
stretching myself to go connect with someone in a way that I go, I'm an introvert. Like this feels painful. I don't like,
Right.
it could be making certain phone calls. It could be letting someone go. It could be
Mhm.
networking. It could be, right? I mean, all these things
Absolutely.
we
They're
all
all
have.
very real.
Yeah, we all have different lists of things that make us feel uncomfortable or that cause us pain. And those are all the things. I'm not sure that you can answer that question. What pain are you willing to endure to reach your goals until you are faced with that pain?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right?
And I think it evolves too, because your point about, having to let someone go is a really good example. Like it shows up and you're not anticipating it necessarily. And then it's there and you're like, man, I got to deal with this now. Like I am being called upon to do this work. I need to do this and I need to handle it well. And I've got to figure it out. And I've never had to do it before. And I'm going to figure it out. Like if we've gotten to that point where we can build up our confidence enough, we know that no matter what comes our way, we'll figure it out because we have enough people around us that can help provide insight. We know where to go to get the right answers. We're not going to sit and stew on it alone. And we trust ourselves, we trust ourselves that we will figure it out.
Mm-hmm. I'm almost thinking too about this pain because I have pain all the time. You know what I mean? Like I just part of life. Like there's things
Yeah.
that people go, they ask me, well, how do you do these films or how do you do this stuff that you do? And I go, well, I just do a lot of stuff I don't want to do. And,
Yes.
and it sucks. It's horrible. I don't want to
Sure.
do X, Y, and Z. Yesterday, this is a great example. Yesterday, I'm thinking about my interview with you. I'm trying to get some social media stuff out. I'm prepping for some other interviews. Well, I have a sales agent who wants to rep 2 out of my last 4 films. And he's got 3 contracts in front of me and 2 other documents and all these files that he needs. And I'm going, I don't want to do this. This is the worst. This is so painful. I'm
Right.
thinking, wait, I'm saying to somebody who's wanting to represent me to
Uh-huh.
get my films out into the world that I don't want to do this? This is
Right.
ridiculous. But I did it. You
Of course.
muscled up and you just get it done. And I find that a lot of people don't want to do the things that they don't want to do. That's
Yeah.
the biggest hurdle.
Yeah. And I think too, it depends on the nature of your business. I mean, sometimes there will be things that you may forever need to do. So the example we always joke about is like handling your books, like updating QuickBooks and sending invoices and doing that. Like that's nobody's idea of fun unless you're an accountant, I think.
Right.
And it's a necessary evil for many of us until you get to the point where you hire someone. And a lot of times, when people say that they are looking to hire and they're like, where do I start? I'm like, what do you want to get off your plate? Let's start there. Let's get rid of the task you hate.
Yes.
Because there are people who want to do those tasks and it doesn't have to be you. So let's go pay someone to do them. And that gives you more time working on the things that you're really joyful about and that are more in like your zone of excellence or
Right.
G.
Right. Yeah. The other path that I try to take in those moments is a path of thankfulness to go, wow,
Yeah.
I have a big problem here. I've got somebody who wants to help me and they're asking for all these things. How can I be thankful for that? Or how can I be
Yeah.
thankful that I have money that needs to be accounted for or that needs to,
Absolutely.
it's that path of thankfulness.
Yeah.
And
Good
sometimes
point.
reduce the pain. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So in a lot of the things that I've heard you talk about and read about Hatch Tribe, there's this sense of women coming together to be in community, to support one another, to encourage one another. And yet it seems like a trait that a lot of entrepreneurs have is the trait of competition or being competitive. Like I've got to root out the competition. I've got to go up against them. I've got to research them and then go up against them. And so how does that play out for the women that you're bringing together? How do you deal with the competition that I would think we wouldn't say is necessarily a bad thing, but yet it can have negative ways that it plays out? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, with Hatch Tribe, our core value is community. And so, the person who is part of our community is someone who greatly values being part of that, being part of a bigger picture, and knowing that we're better together than we are apart. And it doesn't mean, of course, that we don't have members that are competitive in nature and competitive in spirit, but we simply don't make space for that inside of our conversation. So it's like, sure, like a great example is there are plenty of people who are in the marketing world that are part of Hatch Tribe, but yet they all play nicely together. They share knowledge with one another. But at the end of the day, if they're bidding for a piece of business and presenting to clients, they're probably competing against one another to get it. And it's all in good spirit and in good fun. But our core value very much is like, let's build this as a tribe, because we want you to have a place to come and exchange data, exchange information, make connections, build your network. And oftentimes, even in competing businesses, they're sometimes able to refer clients because they get someone who's not the quite right fit for them. So they say, let me go give it to this other person. And it's a beautiful referral. So I think we see the spirit of competition and people that are really hungry to succeed, but also their bigger mission and their bigger value system as being part of a community. And that's what we really do. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I obviously I want to get to how people can be involved with Hatch Tribe, but you're in several cities right now. But as people are listening to this in different places around the world that they don't have access to a physical connection with Hatch Tribe,
Mm-hmm.
how would you suggest, whether they are an entrepreneur already or they're thinking about starting their own business, how do they develop that community? Because it can feel so isolating working on your own business. How could they develop that for themselves?
Yeah, without a doubt. So we'll talk about Hatch Tribe in a minute, but I think if you're an entrepreneur right now or thinking about becoming a business owner and you're just like, where are my people? That the first thing to do is ask. And that's innocently enough how Hatch Tribe started. I mean, I put a post on my own personal Facebook page and said, hey, for all you out there that are entrepreneurs living in Charleston, would you all be interested in getting together and hanging out and, I don't know, having a conversation about what it's like to own a business? And the response was overwhelming. So I think if you're really craving connection, but you don't have those people in your orbit, start by just asking the question and use the platforms you use personally. So like go to Facebook, go to Instagram, put it on LinkedIn. Just work your network and find some people who are doing that. And what I find, like I'll go out into coffee shops in town and I'm like, oh, there's 3 or 4 people from Hatch Tribe that are like totally hanging out and they're having coffee and they're building their own connections. And nothing makes me more excited than to see that happening without it taking our events to necessarily bring them together. Like they've met through Hatch Tribe or through our virtual community, and then they're there like in human form doing the thing. And I'm like, yes, that's it.
That's awesome. So really, you got to seek it out yourself. You got to figure out a way to make those connections happen. And it can start small, even just with one other person. It
100%. Yeah. And it snowballs really quickly. I mean, I think people, my perspective too. I mean, the first business I owned, I looked around and I'm like, where are the other women entrepreneurs? Like I didn't know them. I didn't see them. I had no idea they existed. And when we made that call and really asked where they were coming out of the woodworks in droves. And but, oh, wow, this has been a need. Like people needed an opportunity to connect with one another. And we just had no idea that all of us were out there doing this similar thing. And we were probably all working in our houses and thinking I'm the only one and I'm isolated and alone, but we weren't.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't know one another yet. So you're not alone. I can assure you that. And there's probably someone who's like right down the street from you who's thinking the same thing. It's just a matter of making that connection so you can pal up.
That's awesome. All right. So tell people, no matter where they live, how can they benefit from what you've created with Hatch Tribe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our mission really is to touch the lives of 1 million women entrepreneurs through Hatch Tribe. And in order for us to do that, we knew we needed a virtual solution. So while we do have live events, and we're currently in 3 cities and probably expanding to other cities later this year, our virtual platform is called the Member Circle. And you can go to hatchtribe.com/member circle and find all the details there. But it is where we engage and we do what we do live, but we make it happen in a virtual way. So it doesn't matter whether you live in California or Charleston or Italy, you can be a member in our platform. And really, there's two things that we do and we live out. One is building the connection. So it's a immediate network, a place to come, get right connections, get referrals, ask for advice, get the things that you need from a wide array of business owners who are living it and doing it. And I will say it's everyone from newbies that are just getting started to entrepreneurs that have been in business 25 years plus plus. And then the other side is really cultivation, because what we know is that nothing really prepares you for the business of being a business owner. And so we want to teach you the things that you need to learn, but also do it in a shorter way. So we bring on mentors and we have master classes, workshops, and then on-demand courses to teach you the stuff that you need to know so that you can run a better business and learn it quick, because you don't have a lot of time as a business owner.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
all that plays out there, and it's, a wonderful way to make new connections, whether it's in your city or elsewhere. But I think, for getting advice, it's spot on. You don't have to go Google, go ask other business owners and let them help you, as opposed to Googling blind.
Yeah, yeah. And now Member Circle, is that open all the time, or are there certain windows of enrollment, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we open it a couple times per year. Right now it's on a wait list. So, depending on when this airs, if you go to our site, you'll see a wait list. So just enter your email there and then we'll open it up. And I think the next opening probably will be around this spring. So I'm thinking around April. So
great. And obviously there's an investment required to be a part of that Member Circle. And back to what you said, that you have to invest money in order to take your skills to the next level. You can go Google all you want, but you're going to find random bits of information all over the place. But to be able to have a community, and the community is really what's so valuable.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, there are boatloads of free resources, and I'm not going to knock it for one bit. If you can find a good free resource that works for you and you can get what you need, great. But I think what we found over time is that when people invest, they show up big. They're invested in themselves, they're invested in their business. And with that comes a certain quality and caliber of consult. So if you are looking for advice for your business, I'd much rather get it from people who are also invested in their own businesses than really putting it out in, say, a free Facebook group where we don't necessarily know the people that we're getting advice from and whether or not we should take it as valuable or not. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it. Well, I love what you're doing. I'm very attracted to what you guys are up to, and that you're in 3 cities, which is great, and you're expanding. So I just think it's going to keep growing. I think 1 million's too small. Got to increase that number.
We could go to 1 billion, I guess. I don't know if I'll live to see it happen, but
you got a lot of years in front of you. You're good.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for taking time to hang today, Hilary. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been awesome.